Dudes to Dads, brought to you by Dad University, is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back. I am Jason Kreidman.
I'm Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads, episode 180.
180.
I'm talking slow for the older folks.
180. For older folks like us.
How you doing today?
Good.
Yeah?
A little warm out.
It is a little warm.
Yeah.
It's been warm.
It's been warm.
Unseasonably warm.
And humid. Unseasonably humid for
I know,
our
us
area.
Southern Californians have
yeah,
such
we're
to
so
complain
spoiled.
about.
So spoiled.
There's some earthquakes and fires going on as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
That's true. There's a lot of stuff going on. But or there's been over the last couple of weeks.
Right. Yeah.
This episode 180, tips for overcoming jealousy in a relationship.
Okay.
Do you find would you consider yourself a jealous person?
No. Sometimes you ask me questions, I feel like I'm being kind of arrogant because it's not me at all. I'm awesome. But I don't find myself getting jealous. Maybe once or twice ever. Mm-hmm. But for most of the time, I'm usually like, if someone's hitting on somebody I'm dating, I'm like, well, yeah, they're attractive. I expect you to hit on them. If they're at a bar, as long as they're not being disrespectful. If they're being disrespectful, it's a whole different thing. Right. But it's not out of jealousy. It's more like, no, you're just being a pain in the butt. I need to do something about it. But I don't find myself getting too jealous, and I think I had to learn that from seeing friends of mine with jealous people.
Sure,
I didn't like that, so I didn't want to be that.
Yeah, I think I haven't been that. I mean, I think I have some jealousy early on in my life. I think I had a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I think I've had much less as I get older.
Yeah.
There's less care about that. It's not a feeling that comes up a lot. Not to say that it never does, because it does.
Right.
But I think most people are pretty aware whether they're a jealous person or not. Sure. But for those that are, a lot of times it really is just them creating scenarios in their head. Yep. It's a lot of times the reality has nothing to do with the situation.
Right.
But there's certainly times when it just, something might feel off or feel not right, or you justifiably get jealous, in your relationship. Psychologists will often point to that we have deep insecurities or traits about your personality that need some work. And as a result of that, we feel this jealousy. Yeah. But I think we need to distinguish between jealous feelings and jealous behaviors.
And that's the difference, because sometimes those feelings might start bubbling up a little bit, and you're like, all right, what's going on there? But then it's how you act. And I can give you almost an anecdote related to this. When I was 18, it was again, the height of, it was my first girlfriend. I'm like, right. And I remember she was staying as the summer I went back for college, and then and I was away, and then came back, and some guy was visiting the family she was staying with or whatever, and he was a handsome guy, and she said, kind of admitted, he comes around and he's kind of flirty, he's kind of cute, whatever, but she's like, I don't know, I don't want to talk to you about it because I am a little attracted. I was like, okay, well, I'm glad you talked to me about it. And then he came over when I was there. I was super friendly to him, talking all this stuff, and he didn't know what to do. And I think he got a little almost flustered because he was expected to kind of talk to her and be cute and flirty. Right. And here I am being, hey, I'm a great guy too. And then he left, and she goes, you're amazing. And I was like, what? She's like, you didn't act on everything I told you, and he still acted the way you acted. And I'm like, no, don't get me wrong. I want to punch this guy in the head. But it was the action that took over. And I was like, let's not play the jealousy role. And it made me win her over.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's it. Those behaviors are really what determines, sort of, are you, quote, a jealous person or not? Yeah. In an example, if you're actually confirming that your wife or significant other is doing something that you don't agree with, let's say with somebody else, you're probably going to have some feelings about it. Yeah. That's just a natural thing. Example, if she was texting an old boyfriend or something, yes, you're going to probably have some feelings, and that's okay. It's really about, acting on that what are going to be some of the ramifications of doing that in your relationship, and how can you handle that? I think that's kind of what's most important.
For sure.
Yeah. I think trust comes into play for sure.
Yep.
And values. If you don't trust your partner for whatever reason, that can be something within them, or it could be something within you.
Right.
If you're not trusting them, then you're more likely, obviously, to have issues with jealousy.
For sure.
Now, some people give you a reason not to trust them.
Right. Yeah.
Other people don't.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to kind of, that's hard to distinguish sometimes, because there's some people, like,
for sure,
you think everyone's giving you a reason, if you're the type of person that thinks that, but a lot of times it might be just things like you said, scenarios in your head that you're inventing.
Right.
And that might be my father has a good anecdote about that. Not anecdote, but like a saying, like, if someone takes your girlfriend away, they did you a favor.
That's
and I'm like, I haven't thought of it that way, but you're right.
No, it's funny. I had seen in some of the Facebook groups, there's these kinds of posts happen all the time, where a guy will say, hey, I saw this picture on my wife's computer, but meanwhile, she never showed me that picture. I have a feeling she's cheating, or whatever. And she might be. But then they go through this whole scenario. He's, going nuts, and it's not saying I don't understand that. It's just then like, well, what do you do about it?
Right. Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Yeah.
And part of that is because we either have a distrust or we have some issue that we're going to have to work on that we just don't feel the same level. And that can be, we might have a different expectation of love or honesty or even monogamy or whatever it is that you're dealing with. And so we feel like those are in jeopardy
right
when we feel jealous.
Yes.
And so a lot of it, almost all of it, has to do with fear and losing something.
Yeah, for sure.
The idea of if a guy is worried about that, he is fearful that he's going to lose his wife or that somebody else is going to take her attention.
Sure.
And, vice versa. I mean, that's most of the time, I think that's what happens.
Yeah.
Is somebody just has that fear. When you don't have that fear, either because you trust, you're confident in your relationship, or you just would be okay without them.
Yeah, right.
Jealousy doesn't creep itself in in that way.
Yeah.
So you kind of, there's a couple things you got to do. So I compiled a couple different things of how to deal with jealousy, and maybe some steps and some things that you can do is if you are somebody who feels jealous on a regular basis and wants to act on it and or does act on it, and some people I think don't care that they're jealous. Like that doesn't bother them, but it could be bothering your partner. Yeah. Which is going to drive them further or do something, whatever. So you gotta kind of nip it, you gotta just kind of figure it out. So the first step, like many things, is just become aware and recognize that you are jealous.
Yeah.
Understanding that it actually is your problem and not somebody else's. Right. Now, their actions or what they've done to, can't make you feel jealous, but what they've done that you have determined makes you feel jealous. Right. Certainly can be a factor. But you have control over your state, and how you are. So overcoming the jealousy is totally up to you. Right. Certainly, you can't rely on the other person to reduce or eliminate your jealousy. Right. You can eliminate some factors and some things going on, but it's ultimately you who has the jealousy. Absolutely. So you got to sort of own that, become aware of it. Right. The second part is understanding the reason for your jealousy. So, is the situational real, or is it something in your head? Like this situation with this guy who said, oh, I know she's having an affair with somebody at work. And meanwhile, he hadn't seen anything. No proof. Hadn't talked with her, hadn't done anything, just saw a picture of her with an exposed area of her body. Right. Yeah. Which she could have been taking the selfie or, who knows? Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, at least it was her and not somebody else. Yeah. I mean, you could play that,
Yeah.
Right. You find some pictures of the naked guy and their selfies. Maybe, I mean, you could then
put two and two together,
have a little conversation
for sure.
So here's the thing, like we said, understanding the reason for the jealousy. What's making you jealous? So is it the fear of losing someone? Is it the fear of looking bad? Is it the fear of, whatever else? I can't even imagine. And most of it is the fear of losing somebody.
Yeah.
When it's in a relationship.
And it's probably some degree of like, your machismo's kind of hurt, your ego's hurt.
Ego, for sure. Yeah. That's definitely valid. So the second one was understanding the reason for your jealousy. And then after you sort of understand that and be honest with yourself, review your assumptions of the relationship. In other words, what do you expect from your partner? Do you expect that they shouldn't be communicating with somebody? Let's say they did text an old friend or a former boyfriend or something like that. Are they not allowed to provide affection when they see somebody of the opposite sex?
Right.
Are there these rules and expectations and assumptions that you have? You have to understand and be clear on what those are.
Yeah.
Eventually, we're going to get down to like, well, how do you then match that with what theirs are?
Right. Yeah.
Because I guarantee you think of things differently. I mean, I know in that realm, like my wife is different in those things than I am. Like to her, something is completely meaningless.
Yeah.
Completely meaningless. And I absolutely believe her.
Yeah.
But it's not meaningless to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Like, what do you mean you talk to that person? Like, I could say something like that, and to me, I would never do that. Yeah. Like, how could you have done that? I mean, that's not happening, but I'm just saying those kinds of situations where I know that we differ completely in that way.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah.
And so I need to look at it from her perspective of like, what was her intention?
Right.
Like,
well, and conversely, someone who's kind of like your wife. I mean, I'm very similar in that regard. Like, I have maybe two people that I used to date that I'm still friends with in some context, or you know what I mean, like close friends. Like,
and I have no.
Yeah, no, and some people do that. They just completely cut ties, and I had to learn later that was normal to be friends with people that I dated. But I happened to was like first, a couple people that I dated were people that I ended up being friends with later, and people have to deal with that when they're dating me, and I let that know pretty upfront that I'm still friends with a couple people that I had a relationship with or whatever. And
but you have zero intentions.
But there's no intention at all. Like, I'm not trying to get back with them. I'm not trying, it's like we just, hey, by the way, we used to date, like it's now we're just cool with each other. And maybe if someone says hi or sends me a text, or I might bump into somebody that I know, or even just having friends of the opposite sex. We talked about this before the show. I don't have any intention with them. And I think that's why I can be legit friends with them. I'm not trying to.
Well, and so you bring up a point, though, is that we, kind of like our love languages, we have the expectations and the assumption that the other person is the same as us.
Right.
So like you, as an example, don't have, you're not jealous. You have friends that are of the opposite sex. So you assume that that's the same that she would think,
and it's
she
not.
And she may be like, whoa. I don't like you having,
not necessarily. I mean, so I've been fortunate to date people like, I always believe in this concept of like, go strong into it and then everything else behind it. Like, for example, I got in the habit of dating people, thankfully, later that like, if there's a really hot woman walking by, she'll be the one who notices. Like, well, you see that girl's whatever? And I'm like, oh, geez, yeah. Oh my God. Or if a really good looking guy, I could say the same thing. I'd be like, did you see that guy? Look, man, he's a handsome dude. And it becomes like almost funny.
Yeah.
And so we make light of the fact that we're like, yeah, of course we're going to be drawn to someone else on some level. Doesn't mean I'm going to do anything.
Right.
It's the intent.
But that's the trust. Those are the other things, because if you have betrayed somebody,
right, that's a whole different.
You're in a different. Realm.
You're in a different room at that point.
Yeah, and so that's going to bring up a different set of issues and things that you got to work out.
Yeah,
you've got to work that out, and you have to prove to the other person that you can be trusted, and or vice versa. You've got to be able to trust the person and give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
but that's a decision between the two of you of like, how much tolerance do you have?
Right.
Like my tolerance might be a lot lower than my wife's.
Where's the threshold?
Whereas there's people that say, oh, no, I don't care, whatever. Like, it doesn't bother me. Or, I mean, there's people that go even further, open marriage. And I mean, there's all kinds of different levels of what people are comfortable with. And so part of that is, the communication, which we'll talk about. But you got to review your assumptions and kind of understand what your assumptions for yourself and your significant other are. And, you got to kind of do those match. Number 4, understand the impact if you are to act. So if you, in this situation, let's say with this guy who saw his wife a picture, if he confronts his wife, he has to be prepared for any sort of ramification of that. In other words, he's now not trusting her.
Right.
Or, and she can interpret it however she wants. She might say, I can't believe you didn't trust me. How could you be like that? Or she might even say, well, this has nothing to, this is nothing. I took a picture and it didn't mean anything. I don't know what you're even talking about.
Or this is from years before I met you or something.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of things that, and you have to then be able to believe, and that person has to, do that. Now, there's some things on the radio. There's a local radio station here that has, where they send roses they call up somebody will call up the show.
Yeah.
And say, I think my significant other is cheating. And so they will offer the person a dozen roses. They'll call them up and say, hey, we're offering you romantic roses. Who would you like to send this to? And they get the name. And then, of course, they almost always only air the ones that are conflict.
Right.
Because it's not good radio.
Right. Yeah.
Don't.
Right.
But it's interesting because, these people obviously have a suspicion, and almost all the time they show. And it's just funny how people handle it.
Right.
Some of the have just been hilarious. The person says like, you're the crazy one, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, oh, she's just a friend that's in need. And, there's just all these stories and such.
Yeah.
So and most of the time, obviously, those are situations that you have to act because you have enough proof or you have enough suspicion to do that. So you really just have to, if you're somebody who is like snooping, and you're looking for something, you got to be prepared. And I think most people maybe who are doing that are probably prepared because it's almost like they want to find something.
Yeah. Because we already suspect something. They just want to be validated in their feeling.
Right. And that can be just, something's off. There's some weird activity.
Yeah.
Especially now with phones.
Yeah.
Well, what's like, you can see my phone. Like, I don't care, and here you can go onto my phone and I can go onto your phone and who cares? Like, I don't have a need to,
that's interesting. I've never had a need to snoop. And I never wanted to invade someone's privacy because the problem with phones.
But you wouldn't then like somebody doing that to you?
No, because, not just because, and I'm not hiding anything, but it's just some people might infer things from emails or whatever. Like, you might have a thought with your buddy. You might talk to somebody about something and you had a thought about something about, because I talk to my friends on email about kind of intimate things and it may involve someone that I'm dating or some thought I had about someone else or,
I'd like to see your email.
Some random, celebrity or whatever, I remember when I met Jessica Alba.
I don't document anything like that.
You're very smart. But it's more like a kind of a catharsis.
I learned that in business.
You're right.
Because you never document anything that you wouldn't want someone to see, especially communication with about something.
Well, and I guess that's the thing I have about that is that, a lot of things that I might be sending, I feel email is probably the most, related to that. But it's because I'm just sharing thoughts and someone might be reading that going, well, what do you mean by that? Blah, 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 that. And then infer the people that are the type of people that want to see everything are looking for something. So they'll automatically, and I remember being in a relationship where I didn't care. And then they still found something. And it was never anything bad. It was just like so-and-so said, called you love. And I'm like, well, they're British. That's what they say. Like, what are you getting at? And then it became just weird. And then obviously it's not really healthy. So I always respect people's privacy. And that's why I don't want to know what's in your phone. Even if you left it open, I'd be like, I'm not looking. Yeah. Because you're looking for something.
Sure.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
My thoughts about that.
No, that's fine. I hear you. And then number 5, try to solve it. So, you're going to want to communicate. I mean, if you have an issue and you feel like something is not right and you're having some jealous feelings, I do think that it's okay to communicate it, but you have to make it your issue.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm feeling this way. Instead of saying you're causing me to feel because you did this, you can't approach somebody with blame.
Right. Yeah. I've heard that too, where they start blaming the person that is around them. Yeah. You know, like let's say
because you did this, I'm feeling this.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, listen, here's how I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing, and I just wanted to understand from your perspective. Like you have to be good in your approach, otherwise it can go awry.
Yeah.
You know, and you could mess it up.
Yep.
How you approach it is going to kind of dictate how that can go. You know, if your partner doesn't seem to care about how you feel, there could be a problem.
Right.
You know, if you're, and especially if you're coming across in a honest and sincere way in saying, listen, like, hey, this is happening to me and I'm feeling this way. And I guess you might have to say, because, you know, it's like, you know, when you talk to your ex, I'm feeling a little threatened. Yeah. Or, you know, and if you're honest in that way, if they say like, you shouldn't be, don't worry about it. You know, and they're sort of defensive about it.
Yeah.
That can be a problem. But if they're like, oh, wow, I'm sorry that, okay, so what do we do? You know?
Yeah. Like, hey, yeah.
Because they don't, here's the thing. Do they need to comply with what you're asking? Now, that's an interesting conversation because somebody might be more inclined to comply while the other one's not going to at all.
Right. Yeah. and I've been on both sides of that coin. So,
right.
And, you know, I hopefully, and I think I've been lucky in this regard where I haven't dated anybody that was completely jealous and insane about everything else. But I've seen that happen. I've been the friend of somebody who their boyfriend didn't want them to talk to me anymore.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, oh, what do you mean? We're not doing anything. It's like, I know, but he's jealous. And I was like, well, jealous of what? I haven't barely
talking to the girl.
Yeah. A woman friend, you know, and I don't know. It's I don't know. I don't expect them to comply 100% with being my friend and just screw that guy they're dating. But at the same time,
or you meet the guy and you be like, hey, listen, man, I just want to let you know, like I'm, you know,
but they rarely ever do that. They never even met me and they just heard of my name or saw a picture of me somewhere.
Well, Alan's so great. Alan this. Alan's
he does a podcast. Right. Does a dads, whatever. You know,
he's famous.
He's quasi famous. And so you know, so then I just have to understand that on that side of the things. And if I'm on the receiving end of that, and someone doesn't want me talking to somebody that I'm friends with or whatever, I would rather talk to them about it. It's like, well, why is it that you feel this way? You know, what's really going on? What's the underlying motive behind that? Yeah,
and again, you have to communicate what your assumptions are and work that out. And it can be difficult. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it on two different levels and one person's really jealous and the other one's not, one person acts a certain way and they're okay with this and you're not. I mean, that becomes a little difficult.
Yeah.
I think early on in my relationship, my marriage, I was more that way. And that had to do a lot with, I think, with control, you know, where you're more concerned about those kinds of things. And it, some of it can just be like the jealousy of how I recall being jealous of like how she spent her time. Well, I want more time, you know, and so I was jealous, not even of a person, but of the time.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we don't even have that much time and you're going to be doing this instead of this, you know, and I remember that being such friction versus then me just letting that go.
That's an interesting point. It's like not just about the opposite sex per se. It could be about time, could be family.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times people are jealous of the family.
Yeah. I mean, I put in your relationship, but you're right. It could be your kids too.
Kids. Yeah. I was going to say that. Like some people will, you know, get jealous.
Dads are definitely guilty of that, where you get jealous of, I mean, I'm talking for a friend, of course.
Yeah.
Where, you know, kids may get attention.
Yeah.
Whereas, especially a newborn or something like that, where they get a lot of attention and you're not.
Right. We had a few episodes about that.
Yeah. That can happen for sure.
Right.
And so, I don't think this applies just to the relationship of spouse.
Yeah.
But
this is more frequent, but you're right. And you brought up a good point there, is that it could be something related to some time management.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how you spend your time. You're doing this podcast, you do your music. Well, you're not spending time with me.
Right.
I'm not saying,
No, but that's totally valid. Yeah.
Those can be things. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So you're just going to want to make sure that you communicate your issue. So, overall, jealousy, it's not an easy subject. It's not an easy feeling. It comes from fear and anger, and there's all this stuff associated with it. And a lot of it is the result of our beliefs.
Right.
Because everybody has different beliefs. Everyone then has different levels of jealousy. And it can be what we believe about ourselves. It can be our weaknesses, things that we just don't feel good about. And then they can be brought on by the actions of other people. So then we feel like we don't have any control over
right.
it. But you have to have that control over yourself and how you act on it. So, I would just say, if you are somebody who feels jealous on a regular basis, maybe go over some of these ways and see if it's something that you want to reduce, because jealousy can eat at you. It can be painful. It can really cause issues.
Yeah.
And so I think it's something that, men and women need to kind of look at and deal with, because it's not a healthy feeling.
Right.
It's natural.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't use the word healthy.
Yeah.
It's not positive.
Right.
It doesn't benefit you in a lot of ways, whereas some other emotions can benefit you or do something, release your anger or whatever. Doesn't have a lot of benefit.
Right. There's not a lot of value that comes. Yeah. Unless you kibosh something that you think is going too far, Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know. It's weird. I don't think it's a jealous moment, but it was. I was out with a bunch of friends, and a lot of them were female. It was like a Halloween thing when I was in my 20s or something, and we were in Los Angeles, and some guy came up, and the girl that I was seeing at the time, or someone I used to date at least, he went up to her and grabbed her hand, kissed it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then he was like he did something else, and I go, all right, it's enough. and then he kind of looked at me, and then he looked at the other girls, and I said, oh no, I'm dating them too. And then he kind of looked at me, and then he walked away, and they were laughing because they're like awfully forward. I'm like, it was just one of those moments where I was like, don't go too far with this.
Sure. Sure. No, that can happen.
Yeah.
If anybody has any input or feedback regarding jealousy and their own issues, or even some ways maybe that they've overcome that, Alan, what should they do?
Podcast at dudesTodads.com if they want to email us, or they can hit us up on Twitter at dudesTodads or Facebook dudesTodads.com. Please go to YouTube and look at the Dad University. Jason's got a lot of great videos up there and a lot of Dudes to Dads mentions on there as well. And then also go to iTunes and or Stitcher or where you see us in the podcatching land. I want to say it's podcatching. And leave us some reviews and some 5 stars and subscribe to those channels. It really helps perpetuate the show.
Awesome. Well, Alan, thank you as always.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.